Hello again. Now my Raspberry Pi has been set up and I can reach it via network SSH. Well, as I cannot record the other monitor while it's working, I just took this final stage picture. It's not the best picture ever, but that's what you will get when the Ubuntu core will be set up and running. So actually I can reach it via this command. I'm on Windows, so basically I will use putty as a tool. So 50 was the then of course putty is giving me security alert because I'm using, of course, my private key set up on my computer, which is the pair of the public key that I published on the single sign-on account I made at Ubuntu to do the burn procedure. So actually, I'm in and with this Sego shell, I can control directly my Raspberry. So that's the Raspberry Pi with the kernel name and whatever else. Finally, ifconfig. Okay, there is no command like that, but okay, it's not really about. So let's make, coming back to our point, let's make Docker running. Ubuntu core image distro came with a new package manager called Snap. So actually it's quite easy to install Docker. I believe it's just snap install Docker. And then again, the magic happened. I already did a bit of research because I'm a bit an old guy, so I used to work on Debian distro, which are not really Ubuntu. Of course, they are the ancient version of the Ubuntu, but I'm still not really used to the novelties. So I already did a bit of research to reach that level. Nevertheless, it's quite easy using apt-get or downloading the packages and using the package command. It's more or less the same. So Snap nowadays for me it's a novelty, but it's just a quick way to go. So let's wait until Snap installs Docker on our machine. It could be, as it already happened in the past, in a past run that I tried on Raspberry, that at the end I have to reboot my machine. Last time I was quite unlucky, as I set up DHCP for my network interface. So on reboot, the Raspberry changed IP address, and I was not able to continue neither the recording nor the show up. This time I will try to avoid it, as I already know some tricks. So I'm simply going to explain you what are already the tricks up front, instead of simply commit the same mistake as the last time. So basically it's not that difficult, but as we are talking about a demo and not as an embedded device that should go on the market as it is, I guess that those shortcuts are quite acceptable. So the problem, if I'm not mistaken, was related to the fact that Docker came, but the socket to access via command line interface the functionality of Docker to check what are the containers, what are the image stores, and whatever else. I mean, it's not word read writable. So there are for sure best practices about. I'm not here to explain you how to set up your correctly your Docker. You can choose whatever you like. You can even use, as the documentation says, Docker on Windows if you are more familiar with. So I'm more a Linux fan, but okay, that's a personal thing. So, okay, Docker is installed, as we can see. So I guess it's installed, but it's not running yet. So ps aux. No, okay. It seems that there is already a process done by root with a Docker there. So pretty much fine. We can so say up to now that our Docker is running. So let's try to follow the instructions. Well, of course, we do have a command line shell already, and we should run this docker pull command. Okay, fine. Note, where do this command fetch from? It's written here in the overview part. So if we go to the Docker hub of KNX Association, yeah, okay, I'm not signing in, of course. To sign in, we do have the username and password reported here, which it's already stored in my browser settings, so I don't have to remember anytime. The documentation points to gives a name, a path, and it uses a tag for the image to be used by the demo. Of course, the tag 2.00 example given has a particular operating system and architecture design. My Raspberry Pi, it's not an AMD 64 architecture, but it's more an ARM architecture. And it could also be that your Raspberry, if it's more recent than mine, should use another architecture ARM64. So you should use the corresponding tag, of course. So I will simply pick up mine and I will adapt this pull command using the correct architecture. Otherwise, in the end, it will simply download an image that it's not runnable on my OS/architecture. So let's do the Docker pull using the correct tag for the architecture. By the way, as I said, I'm going to review the documentation with all those nice tricks reported. Then it could also be, indeed, and that's what I said some minute ago, that via command line interface, I cannot access the Docker functionality because of this socket permission schema. So for the sake of the demo, I'm simply doing chmod 666. So there is no way. I guess best practices would say put in Docker configuration file somewhere the permission schema of your socket for the command line interface, whatever else. I'm not here to discuss about that. It's not the scope of the demo itself. So let's make it working. Okay. And then that's also quite common. So what the second error response we get is the pull it's denied because it requires also a login first, as it's a private Git, sorry, not Git, yes, GitHub space. No problem. We can do Docker login command from command line. Then it will ask us the username, KNX IoT class group. And then the password, I will simply do copy and paste by doing copy and then right click one time. Voila, login succeed. And now I believe that my command of Docker pull will work perfectly. Voila, that's the desired result, by the way. So let's wait a bit while we download the Docker image of our demo for the correct architecture operating system. By the way, there are plenty of other ways to do that. I'm just showing you the more comfortable one for me. So which is using the command line shell. I guess you can copy, download even from here. We gave you the access right, so it's not really a problem. You can get pieces. So also following the documentation as it is for your convenience. For us, it's more or less the same if you can reach the target, which is run the demo on your platform. It could also be that on your platform, which is not a Raspberry, but another embedded device, you have to do more effort to have Docker running. Linux kernel modules set up, I don't know, a USB layer or other, I mean, hardware abstraction layer things to do. So now it's doing the job, pull complete, and it state, okay, this is the digest. The new image for this target has been installed on your operating system. That's pretty much fine. So let's run the container. A few words about container images and whatever else that could be useful for you to start. As I already stumbled over. Docker came with a lot of nice feature. Two are mandatory for you to know. One is to understand how many image do you have on your Docker installed, and the other one is how many container do you have on your Docker installed, because it could be that it will be handy to start from scratch, purge an image, purge a container, install another container, and whatever else. Basically, there is a subset of commands. Docker first, always, and then you have image space, ls. It's list, so the same Linux command of list with Docker image, and the same is with the subspace container. Actually, I did the pool like in Git that brings the image on my Raspberry Pi file system. And so I do have an image installed, but I don't have any container yet running. And that's because I did not execute still the command at point 4. So now I'm going to create and run a container for my image. So I'm simply copying this. By the way, again, the documentation points to the tag image version 2.0, which is the default architecture, which is not the case of my Raspberry. So I'm going to modify the command. And what the syntax of the command says to us is, okay, we have a given name. I appended this suffix version 2 simply because in the documentation we already have the same command for the demo version 1, which was the old stable version. Now I'm using the version 2.0, which is the undervoting one. So to avoid that you run twice the same command, see, and then you stumble over a problem like, you already have a container with such a name. I simply, in the documentation, called it in a different way, but nothing different. And that will do a bind of the internal web service to running on port 80 to my local host port 8080. So that you can choose freely your port, but this is a way where we can avoid, example given, if you have on your host computer something already running on port 80 that simply does not work because of an interference with something that you can already have elsewhere. So I say that I changed the command, but I didn't actually. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, sorry. Bad thing. Right. You cannot find because it was twice the name, you see. no manifest, but you just have to check what the Docker command line interface said. Not found the manifest for that. Voila. So actually, this is now running, starting. So basically, next step will be as far as this has been run, to continue with the part that, of course, gives you the possibility to log in to a local KNX installation, which I do have today. So I hope that in the next step, I can show you what you can actually do with, which is basically subscribe. That's the theory. I did not try it yet. So run the demo, then subscribe to the demo. So from what should be in the future, the third-party API gateway, which nowadays can be mimic using Postman, example given. So you will subscribe to a channel, a data point, and then you can interact with the ETS, doing some actions on the ETS just to see what happened on Postman, so on the third-party gateway later on, when something actively happened on the KNX installation bus. So actually, this is now running. So I'm simply running a browser, localhost, on the IP address of the machine, port 8080, which basically gives me the demo page. Wow, done. Or still 1 point. Yes. Well, as you can see, there is an error I already knew about, so that's why I said, wait. Actually, my host system, so not the Raspberry Pi, cannot. Oh God damn it! I click. I didn't want to do that. Fully, it will come back. Actually, my host system cannot resolve Raspberry Pi.local. To do that, we do have a way, which is instruct our host system via a particular file that I'm going to tell you later. Let me check if I can already say use some word while it's loading. Which is this one. So open. See, I already asked the experts. Windows. System 32. Drivers. Hosts. On other distro, like in Linux, this is the file duplicate session. Example given /etc hosts. Whereas you have to say to the system raspberry.local is this IP address, local IP address, or whatever else, but I'm going to fetch it in my Windows system. H. It could be that it is hidden, most likely. Hosts. Drivers /etc. So let's try to do edit with Notepad. I don't know. Yes, I cannot. So there should be a way to edit hosts, most likely via a tool, a Windows tool. Let me quickly check. By the way, that does not mean that this is not working. Actually, if you do that, let's reload it. Yeah, you see, if you substitute Raspberry Pi.local, which is going to anyway to change to /API v1 sites. So instead of selection API v2 sites, then the demo is giving you an answer. But of course, running on. So meaning that the demo itself is working, it's just the user interface that is not working. But nevertheless, now I'm puzzled by that. So how to edit Windows posts file. Really? Notepad run as administrator. Okay. So let's do that. Notepad. No, sorry. Run as administrator, Robert. Yes, run as administrator. File. Open. System32 / etc. No, no. Well, gig is also System32 drivers etc. Okay, file open System32 drivers profiles hosts. Well, good. It's empty. That's how it looks like, but it's not my case. So probably I have some restriction on my installation on my computer installed, so I cannot go farther. What I can also say is that I was trying this setup from home in VPN, and there was no way to make it working via the VPN because the VPN insert a new layer and most likely. So I would suggest you to do that in either a separate LAN segment or on your own premises. So, well, basically that's it about. So I hope you will enjoy this guide and keep in touch for the next step, which would be really play with the installation. So bye bye. Thank you for following.